Good morning, buenos dias. We're here at Mile High. Rico and I are here with 30 breakfast burritos. Where are you all? We said we were doing hybrid. Hold up your beautiful Santiago's burrito. All right, we'll try again next month. I'm happy to host for a little while if you guys need to get used to coming out. So Mile High will hang in there with the state and Bhpac. So you can see the room has plenty of space. So let's go ahead and start with roll call, please.
Bob, do you want to go ahead and start with those in the room there? I can't see.
Those of us that are in the room is Bob Dorsheimer, Chair.
Yumiko Doherty, BHA.
Dresden Wagner, Recovery Support Manager.
Tyrone Alexander, Client Engagement Manager.
Okay, and let's go ahead and start with Lorraine Gilroy.
I'm Lorraine Gilroy. I'm with Clubhouse Colorado Coalition in Greeley.
Okay, and Jenna Cap.
Hi, I'm Jenna Cap. I'm one of the safety net licensing managers at the BHA on Victoria's team.
Thank you. Erica Gannett.
Hi, Erica Gannett, also a safety net licensing manager with the BHA.
Stephanie Johnson.
Morning, everyone. Stephanie Johnson. I'm with Well Power and in Denver.
Thank you. Victoria Lasky.
Hello, I'm Victoria Lasky, the Associate Director of Safety Net Licensing with the BHA.
Thank you. Margie Grimsley.
Hi, I'm Margie Grimsley with the Colorado Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health and part of the membership committee.
And Nat Brown.
Good morning, everybody. Nat Brown with Summit Stone Health Partners and Spirit Crossing Clubhouse and our Peer Specialist program. And I'm also a member of the membership committee. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you. Lorraine.
Everybody, Lorraine Hall with Life-Ring Secular Recovery for people of all faiths and none.
Thank you. Angie Wold.
Hi, I'm Angie Wold. I'm the Director of Operations for Addiction Research and Treatment Services, ARTS.
Thank you. And Phyllis Reed.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Phyllis Reed, Director of Health Education Services at the Colorado Department of Education.
Thank you. Angela Sheff. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. I'm Angela Sheff. I'm a person in active and sustained recovery.
Thank you. Candace Rose.
Hi, I'm Candace. I too am a person living in recovery, and I work with Advocates for Recovery Colorado as the Southwest Region Manager based out of Durango, Colorado.
Thank you. James Gannon.
Morning, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, Bob. I appreciate you doing that. We flew back from the Recovery Leadership Summit and didn't get home until about 1 o'clock last night. So next month I will be in person, but I am also the Director of Programs with Advocates for Recovery Colorado.
Thank you, James. Travis Ayers.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Travis Ayers. I'm the Northeast Regional Manager for Advocates for Recovery Colorado. And today, as James said, we just got back super late. So I'm just a human here today. I'm trying to hang in there. I didn't get back to Sterling till about 3 o'clock this morning. So
thank you for joining us. Laura Dykes. Laura, I think we still have you on mute. There you go.
Sorry, I'm just getting over COVID, or I would be in person too for those breakfast burritos. Laura Dykes, I'm a treatment provider, behavioral health quality assurance director at Colorado Coalition for the Homeless.
Thank you. Megan Stott.
Good morning. I'm Megan Stott. I am the statewide association coordinator with Colorado Mental Wellness Network.
Thank you. Hope Hyatt.
Good morning, everyone. I am Hope Hyatt. I am the Executive Director at the Colorado Mental Wellness Network. I know many of you here, so nice to see you. We are a statewide nonprofit, 100% peer-led, peer-run organization, providing the most comprehensive training to become a peer support professional, most known for education, training, advocacy work. We also have a direct service program where we have our own peer support professionals providing drop-in peer support across Denver. And we are in the process of designing, developing, and then launching the Colorado Association of Peer Support Professionals. And we've been thinking about joining this council for a long time. And I just, in kind of our work that we've been doing, we wanted to join you today and be a guest as we're in the process of applying to join your council. So thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Hope. Kristen Toombs.
Good morning, everybody. Kristen Toombs. I'm with the state of Colorado's Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing. I'm the director of our Office of Homeless Initiatives. And I'm sorry to not be there in person or on camera. Also a late night, not because of traveling, but just there is so much going on here. Exciting stuff. And there's obviously an intersection with behavioral health and people's housing status. And so very excited to be here and appreciate being with you all today.
Thank you, Kristen. And Aaliyah and Darby.
Oh, I just turned my camera off first. No camera. Hi, everybody. Aaliyah Andrews, BHA. We are driving back from Grand Junction right now. So I'm going to let Darby.
Hi, Darby Remley, the Supported Employment Coordinator and Trainer with the Division of Folk Rehab.
So we'll probably be kind of off and on. So don't mind us coming in and coming out. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I saw somebody else come into Bob's conference room while we were going through everybody.
Shannon Miller with Crossroads Turning Points. I'm
glad
from Pueblo to be in person today.
Oh my God.
I'm glad you made it, Shannon. Thank you.
She gets an extra burrito for effort. One for the road.
I know. Well, I haven't been to the in person, so it's kind of nice to come in person.
Well, how does the room feel?
I love it.
Okay.
It's also nice to see someone else's space.
We're going to do it again next month, guys. So you're totally welcome. Is roll call complete?
That is it. Anybody I missed?
All right. Again, good morning. I'm going to walk us through the agenda quickly so we're all on the same page as to the expectations for today's meeting. At 9:05, I'm going to call for a review of the minutes and then an approval of the minutes. 9:10, Lloyd isn't here, but if there's an update from the membership committee, that would be fantastic. If not, Yomiko has an announcement during this time spot, and that will be a change in the agenda. At 9:30, we have Dr. Madlock, the commissioner from the BHA, doing a briefing and discussing the one-year priorities, and then we'll have an opportunity to do questions and answers and have a dialogue with Dr. Matlock. At 10 o'clock, we're going to move into strategic planning with the BHA and the outcomes. 10 o'clock, we're going to do our normal 10-minute coffee and take a stretching break. We'll come back at 10:40. And then my favorite part of the agenda is always going around Colorado and learning about prevention, treatment, and recovery straight from the community. So that's always a really fun part of the agenda. So at this time, if you can turn your attention to the 9:05 approval of the minutes, I'm going to go ahead and give us about 60 seconds for everyone to go through them, look for edits, changes, or discussion items, and then I will come back. Okay. I'm going to call on council for discussion items, corrections, or issues with last month's minutes. Do I see a hand or a head nod or any communication?
I think they look good. I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I can second.
We have a Shannon second in the room here. Minutes are approved. Thank you, everyone. Next up is membership committee. Do we have a report, since Lloyd isn't here, from any of the other members of membership that are prepared to speak?
This is Margie. I don't know whether Nat wants to go, but were not able to meet this week, so I don't have any reports. So I think hearing what Yumiko has to say, Nat, I'm gonna.
I agree. Yeah, if Yumiko, if you could maybe update us on where you were at with editing the membership application and the flyer that was created, that'd be great.
Let the agenda reflect that there is a change, that the state and Yumiko will be taking this time slot. Yumiko?
Thank you. And yes, the membership committee has a lot going on. If it's okay with you, Margie and Nat, I think we'll meet in a couple weeks and get all of those pieces sorted out. And I'd love to use this time to turn it over to some of my colleagues, Victoria, Jenna, Erica from the BHA, who have some important updates. And hopefully we can just sneak them in now, if that's okay with folks. Okay.
Sounds like you guys were called out.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Perfect. All right. Are we all seeing that? Excellent. So thank you everyone for having us this morning. We're again just sneaking in to give you a little bit of an update that's pretty timely. So again, I'm Victoria Lasky. I'm the Associate Director of Safety Net Licensing, and I'm joined by two of my Safety Net Licensing managers, Erica and Jenna. And we wanted to just kind of keep you updated on some important happenings at the BHA right now. So just by way of an introduction to this topic, I wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork of what we're talking about. So in the BHA, we have a division called the Quality and Standards Division. And really what we do within Quality and Standards is we license substance use disorder providers and we designate mental health providers. So there are licensing managers on this team that process applications for these providers, and they determine if they meet the requirements in order to get that license. Our top priority is always ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of those being served. And you'll see there's a little photo of a very small number of our folks on the Quality and Standards team there. And in order to do this work, we are guided by a rule volume. So the catchy name for that rule volume is 2 CCR 502-1, CCR being the Colorado Code of Regulations, and that is the rule volume that governs behavioral health for the BHA. So licensing managers use those rules to determine whether a provider is able to get a license, if they're meeting requirements, what type of license that provider should be receiving, if a provider should be issued a violation for not following the rules for that license, and if a provider should have their license revoked because the health, safety, and welfare of people is at risk. Of course, there's a lot in between that, issuing a violation and revoking a license, but those are that's kind of the spectrum of ways that we enforce those rules. So because of some new legislation that's passed over the last few years, we are needing to make some updates to our rules. So those three big pieces of legislation, one you may be familiar with, it's called the BHA bill, the House Bill 22-1278, which creates a safety net system to ensure that all Coloradans have access to high quality behavioral health care, and put some specific requirements about how we create this safety net system. House Bill 19-1237 created a new license type called the Behavioral Health Entity License, Right now, the Department of Public Health and Environment has that license and is issuing that license right now just for mental health providers, as CDPHE also licensed a number of other providers, including hospitals, assisted living facilities, and others. And moving forward, starting in July 2024, it will be unlawful to operate a behavioral health provider organization without having this license. So right now, if you're not receiving public funding, there's no requirement for licensure, but moving forward, any provider providing those services will be regulated to make sure that those services are really high quality and with the health, safety, and welfare of Coloradans in mind. And then House Bill 22-1256 addresses and increases the rights of people who are involuntarily committed to treatment. So those are the three big pieces that we are taking on right now with some rule updates. So these three bills mean that we need to update our rule volume, and we have a timeline that was given to us in law. So rules need to be effective for July 2023, and rules need to be promulgated and published by April 2023. So updating this rules, I want to emphasize this, is going to be an ongoing process. So in the past, as OBH, we kind of fell into a pattern of only updating the rules when we absolutely had to, when we kind of let the rule volume collect dust a little bit. And that's really not the approach that we want to have as the BHA moving forward, because I think as we're learning more about the system and their new innovations, we are wanting to make sure that these rules are truly, ensuring health, safety, and welfare, and also balancing and making sure that the requirements of the license aren't impacting access to care. So we really see this rule update as a back and forth process where we've got this phase one coming where we need to make changes because of those three laws. And moving forward as the newly formed BHA, we want to make it a regular process that we are adjusting these rules in response to stakeholder feedback of Coloradans receiving services, of providers, of anyone who has a vested interest in this. And so that's really the approach that we want to have going forward. I just want to make sure I emphasize that some of this process is a phase one, and we'll be moving into phases 2 through 100 in the coming years. So as far as this phase one process and timeline, we are starting the rule drafting process now. So Jenna and Erica are 2 of our 5 safety net licensing managers who are diligently drafting our restructure of that rule volume. So that's really going to be high priority, is going to be addressing those 3 laws, making sure we're in compliance with those. And then we will be moving into, we are already really in the stakeholder process, creating new stakeholder meetings and also going to existing stakeholder meetings to talk about this update, to get feedback on the rules. We will have a rule update webpage on the BHA website very soon in the coming weeks, where you'll be able to find those dates for the meetings coming up. You'll be able to find the rule language, and you will be able to submit written feedback through an email inbox so that you can review those and then give your feedback as far as what suggestions you may have, or maybe where you think we're really on the right track. We'll be moving into the official rulemaking process starting in January through April. And what that looks like is filing rules with the Secretary of State. We will have a first reading at our rulemaking board, which is the State Board of Human Services, and that comes with an opportunity for stakeholder feedback as well. You can provide written or verbal testimony at that meeting and give more feedback there. Then there will be the second reading of the rules and the adoption in March. The rules will be published in April. And again, this is just for that phase one rule update. So just to kind of do a little bit of a comparison of some of the really big, like high level changes that are coming. Current state is that people are turned away from services for a variety of reasons. And in the future, we will be building a safety net system where people can't be turned away from care due to their ability to pay, criminal justice involvement, co-occurring disorders or disabilities, and more. And the BHA bill, it actually lists out what are specific reasons that people cannot be denied for services. And then on the kind of more technical licensing side, right now, substance use disorder and mental health are licensed separately and by two different entities. We've got CDPHE, there's us, there's designations, there's licenses, and there's often a lot of confusion about which requirements apply to whom. So in the future, this will all be substance use disorder and mental health will both be under a behavioral health entity license. Because of that kind of separate approach, it's often difficult for providers to offer both mental health and substance use disorder services. And that's really something we want to encourage is those integrated behavioral health services that can address both mental health and substance use disorder. As we know, co-occurrence is really the majority of folks seeking services. So we will have this one BHE license issued by the BHA, and then along with that license will be endorsements added based on the level of care and services offered. And I'll give some examples of those endorsements in a minute. So as I said, we will have our webpage up soon, but I wanted to give you all a little bit of a sneak peek at the proposed rule structure. Again, this is all going to be open to stakeholder feedback. This is really what we're starting with as we're drafting, but as I said, we'll be putting this out for additional feedback as well. So what this looks like is the BHE base license as kind of that base license again for both substance use disorder and mental health, and then endorsements being added based on that level of care. So outpatient, intensive outpatient, emergency crisis, criminal justice services, DUI, et cetera. And then we will still have a separate RSSO, Recovery Support Services Organization license. As you know, those organizations providing recovery support services will need to meet specific requirements for them to bill Medicaid. So without a BHE, so they can also receive BHA funds, but that will remain a distinct license type in our thinking at this time. And then there will be the 2765 involuntary designation and the residential child care facility designation. Those two are pretty kind of separate things that don't quite fit into the BHE structure. So the 2765 designation in law needs to be there's really specific language around that. And requirements. So that's still kind of a separate process. And then the residential child care facilities are currently licensed by the Division of Child Welfare. And so we will continue to designate the services provided there. But that again is a little bit more of a separate process. And then there would be safety net approval for our safety net providers, those accepting public funds with two kind of distinct categories. So you'll see any services with a star next to them are considered comprehensive safety net services, meaning a comprehensive safety net provider has to provide all 9 of those starred services, and an essential safety net provider needs to provide at least 1 of those starred services. And then other providers can provide any 1 or more of any of those services, but the essential and comprehensive have those specific service requirements. This is just, I won't go through this in much detail, especially because we're short on time today. So this is just an idea of the type of things and requirements that would be living within the behavioral health entity license. Again, all of this will be posted on our webpage soon for you to review in more detail. And then there will be the safety net approval process. So as I just mentioned, the safety net provider receiving public funds, including BHA, block grant, and Medicaid, the essential providers providing at least 1 of the 9 comprehensive services. They will also be eligible for value-based payments, and the comprehensive providers that provide all 9 of those services and are also eligible for value-based payments. In the BHA bill, there were also a couple of specific exceptions to that BHE license. So there's a number of providers that can receive safety net approval without a BHE. That includes RCOs, recovery community organizations. Of course, they would be eligible for just the BHA funding, not the Medicaid. They would need the RSSO license for the Medicaid reimbursement. RCCFs, federally qualified health centers, licensed RSSOs, again, have their own license, wouldn't need the BHE, and then individual practitioners as well can be approved as safety net providers. So it's kind of a very high level of what that structure will look like. So that's all I had for today. Again, was trying to give a comprehensive overview, but in kind of a short period of time. So I'm not sure if we have time for questions, or I see a couple of comments came up. There might be a couple in there. Let me take a look.
Okay, we're going to go into the point, and Dr. Madlock has arrived. Welcome, Dr. Madlock. We can go out if you, yep. So who has questions when it comes to Victoria's presentation?
I do see a couple of questions in the chat that I'm happy to address. So the question was, has the OBH licensing staff moved under the BHA? Oh, and I see Aaliyah answered that. Thanks, Aaliyah. Yes, we are now under the BHA. I'm happy to send a copy of the slides out. I see hoping that means improvement to the ladder system. Yes, we are currently, as we're going through this process, we are working with our staff that works with ladders to make sure that this is actually we're seeing as a nice opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean with ladders and really build a structure and system that makes sense. So I actually have a lot of hope that we are going to see improvements to the ladder system. And I see many are going through SUD relicensing now with ladders. Does that mean there will be an additional relicensing period this spring as a BHE? So we're currently figuring out what that transition process looks like. As far as what that looks like, it will probably be more like once you're up for renewal, it would be renewing as a BHE. But we don't quite know what that process will look like. We're currently seeing what we need to do to make sure that's a seamless transition for providers as well as our licensing staff. So more to come on that for sure.
I have a clarifying question. If you have the RSSO licensure, then you qualify for the BHA and the BHE money, correct?
So yeah, if you were a licensed RSSO, you can get BHA reimbursement as well as Medicaid reimbursement because the Medicaid requirements are kind of baked into that RSSO license.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Margie?
Hi, I just looking at that from the child and family lens, just wanting to assure that and oftentimes that is part of the training. It's more for adult consumers or adults. And so just wanting to make sure that that child and family piece is always looked at, especially because it's wonderful to have the dual diagnosis and those pieces, but we also need to have that expertise that really does focus on the child and family piece for our younger children and for those that are not involved with substance use. Hopefully we want to catch those before that happens. So just always want to really make sure that we are including that as part of the new trainings and all of the work that's being done. And any way that the Federation can help in that process, that's what we're here to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Margie. Jenna, the Safety Net Licensing Manager on the call, is actually our staff person who has worked with children, worked in school-based mental health care, and is kind of our resident expert on our team about that. And that's something we're really looking at critically as we're doing this rule update. So thank you for that comment, Margie. I agree. That's very important.
Victoria, I have a question for you, if I could go. So Victoria, how were the endorsements created and what is the process of those endorsements? And then I have a suggestion as to what I believe is a missing endorsement.
Absolutely. So right now, we're really kind of still figuring out the structure high level. Basically, it would be if you are meeting the so you would meet a base set of requirements for the license, and then each endorsement would have different requirements as far as service provisions, staffing, and things that are really unique to that level of care to make sure that we know you're providing that level of service to fidelity. So it would be kind of an additional piece of the license application or licensing process that you would have the policies and procedures and things for each of those levels of care or endorsements you're adding. And I would also love to hear, what your recommendation is.
I would certainly like to see LGBTQ+ added as an endorsement. I do believe there's too many, unfortunately, providers that just do not have the competence or the inclusion policies or procedures to treat trans, gay, adolescents. So anyone in the Rainbow Coalition, I think, should be an endorsement, because it is a very different type of clinical treatment model, and I've been doing it for 25 years. It comes with a lot of trauma-based work. It comes with a lot of affirming. There's a lot of safety. There's a lot of family work that's involved when it comes to adolescence. So the fact that this community still is not represented within the state licensing, I think now is the time to build out capacity and for us to build out training and to really recognize this marginalized population, and to really professionalize the system in Colorado for who treats this community, because often there's conversion therapy people want to talk about, and there's all these other things that happen to our community. So I strongly suggest an endorsement.
Thank you very much for that recommendation. Yeah, we'll definitely happy to think through that. And even if it's not necessarily a phase one, I think there are definitely opportunities to make sure that we are serving that population better moving forward. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Victoria before we move on for Dr. Madlocks?
I have a quick question, I believe, and or opinion. Thanks. I'm Laura Dykes. I'm with Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And one of the things that comes up for us, and as I'm sure it does for other organizations, especially smaller organizations, is that the more rules and regulations we have related to quality assurance, data, reporting, all those sorts of things, it requires a certain amount of support within the organization itself to get those things done. And yet many organizations are not funded to pay for those things or staff for those things to be able to do that. So as the BHA, look, I'm in quality assurance, right? I'm all for being able to report on what we're doing and protecting consumers. But is there talk at the BHA about support, specifically financial support for organizations, especially small organizations or individual providers, to be able to do that, to be able to provide the reporting and the data and the quality assurance that's needed to meet all the rules?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so within the BHA Bill 1278, there is this requirement on the BHA to provide technical assistance to assist with compliance and to assist with the building the safety net set of services. So that's something we're currently working on, is what does that technical assistance look like? But I think you bring up a great point that, you know, it is work to make sure that you know, these requirements are met and that these high quality services are provided. So that's something that's definitely on our minds, and is something that we're working through to figure out how we can best support providers with this, you know, pretty admittedly quite big transition. So that's something we're definitely kind of thinking through and planning for now. All right. I hate to take more of Dr. Medlock's time. So thank you all so much for your engagement, and happy to send the slides out.
Thank you. We appreciate the presentation, and I know we'll be inviting you back because there's so much going on with a lot of that it would be great to take a deeper dive. So welcome, Dr. Madlock, to our first hybrid meeting. Some of us are out in community and here and having some breakfast burritos, and some of us are still online. So we're working towards getting back together. And good morning and welcome to Bhpac.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I'm jealous. I have not had a breakfast burrito in a little while. That sounds fantastic. Thank you, CEO Dorsheimer, for the welcome. Good to see everybody this morning. How you doing? Doing all right? Good. I see coffee mugs. I see nice virtual backgrounds. Well, I'm Morgan Mitlock. I am a crisis psychiatrist and an addiction specialist. And as you have hopefully heard me say by now, it's a great honor of my life to serve as your commissioner, and couldn't be more thrilled to be on this journey with you. And as you know, I think you are revamped and retooled with full membership now. And so we are excited to actually bring all of our boards in the BHA in alignment so that all boards are able to share power as we move forward into our new future together. So I'm actually visiting all boards, the Bhpac, BHAC, we have all of these names, and visiting all the boards to just ensure that you have what you need from me, and that you can also feel comfortable holding me accountable for your vision. We strongly believe that this is the people's agency. We're one of the few agencies that was brought forward and demanded by the people. You know, you don't see that often in government. And so we talk a lot at the BHA about the fact that this is not about us or our vision. It's about being good stewards of the visions of the people of Colorado. And so we really do take that seriously. I understand. Oh, hi, Hope. Good to see you. All right, there's some folks in here I recognize. Very good. I wish we had time for fellowship, as I call it. But I unfortunately have a 10 o'clock today, and I understand that this group would like to hear my formulation of this theme of nothing for us without us. And so I'd like to share that at this time. Chairman Dorshimer, is that my assignment today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just 1 second here.
We have you down for the briefing on the BHA and one-year priorities. And
Okay.
then at the end of your presentation, we have an opportunity for question and answers.
All right, that sounds good. I am going to need help because this version of Zoom is not allowing me to just share the PowerPoint. Donda, do you have my slides?
I don't, if you want to send them real quick, unless it's the one Yumiko sent me.
It is, yes,
Oh,
if you don't mind just sharing that for me. And thank you, Bhpac, for your patience.
Okay, we're off mute and the correct slides are coming to you, Donda.
Not those.
Not those. She's sending them now.
They should have commissioner briefing in the title.
Yep.
They're coming from this computer here. So one moment. Play music in the background. We're on hold for a second. I could sing.
I'll pretend I'll sway back and forth like I'm listening to the elevator.
Okay, Donda, I just sent them to you.
All right, Donda, they're on the way.
All right, that looks about right. Let's take the next slide. I know that this group is very much aware of what the BHA is, but just as a reminder, this is a unique model nationally. I was just at a meeting actually last week with cabinet leaders from across the country trying to get new ideas about what we can do for our state. And no other state is doing it like this, where we have elevated a cabinet member, a psychiatrist, to serve directly on the cabinet of our governor in order to drive coordination and collaboration for whole person health across all state agencies. It's unprecedented. Next slide. When we talk about this unique model, we understand that it's not enough just to have a unique and innovative approach, but we have to have purpose. We got to be purpose driven. And one of the things that we have wanted to reiterate is that from our perspective, we have a fundamental purpose statement that we believe that every person in our state deserves to experience whole person health. And we don't isolate that in silos in terms of substance use health or mental health or physical health, but whole person health and wellness, including how a person relates to society, the right to work, the right to housing. We include all of that in whole person health. And because of that, we envision a world in which behavioral health services are accessible, meaningful, and trusted. Now that gets down to our equity belief there, because obviously for services to be trusted by all communities, they have to be provided in equitable ways. And so we have made it our mission to co-create with you and with the people of Colorado a people first behavioral health system that truly meets the needs of every person in our state. I'll take the next slide. And so we are seeking to be a community anchor. We are seeking to be a source of change and not conflict. We believe that together we will make history, that Colorado can truly become a national example of what it means to uplift the voices of lived experts, of local and community organizers, of advocates, and of people who have needed care. To lift the voices of those who have worked cross-agency in a historic manner to truly bring forward an accessible, meaningful, and trusted behavioral health system. Next slide. As we think about this, we know that Colorado needs us right now. And one of the challenges of the BHA model is that we're at 20% capacity in terms of our ability to be a cross-sector, cross-agency leader. By design, we are to be at 100% capacity by 2024, but Colorado needs us right now. And so one of the things that I have shared with our staff and our team is that we're at 20% capacity for some things, but we're at 100% capacity to actually get the vision and the values and the story right. We're at 100% capacity to properly stakeholder the future. We're at 100% capacity to actually be sure that we are leveraging the expertise on this board and other boards to really get our strategic vision and priorities accurate and in paper and in stone by the end of this calendar year, which is our goal. We're at capacity to do that. And so the urgency of this moment will not allow us to defer until 2024 before we make meaningful change. I don't know about you, but I've lost people during COVID. We can see the statistics on the slides about what has happened during the pandemic as we all emerge from what I would call a massive trauma globally of COVID-19. And so even more than ever, we must take precise action together. Next slide. And so we talk about behavioral health that's by the people and for the people. This vision was conceived by communities across our state, and we want to be accountable to you. We want to empower you to hold our feet to the fire. We want to empower you to hold us accountable to your vision. Next slide. One of the things that we also want to share is that we do the work with the values that you have co-created with us. Across the state, these values were selected as the most meaningful. And so we highlight them today. This is how we want to do the work with you. We first want to elevate truth, being transparent and accurate when addressing you. We want to elevate equity, not just naming root causes of injustice, but also doing what's right financially. And I came in as a question was being asked about resources. We have to allocate the resources then to support that vision for equity. Our third value is community-informed practice. We talk about the fact that we value best and promising practices from across the country, and we also value the folks who live in this state, the folks who have needed help and haven't gotten it, the folks who have lived expertise. We value that as well. And so we want our communities and the people of Colorado to help us select the best practices for this state. We also value collaboration, working in partnership with you to realize a holistic, that's a loaded word, holistic behavioral health vision. Again, not dividing human beings up based on their problems. Substance use over here, mental health over here, physical health over here, but a holistic vision where people are thriving, able to parent, able to work, able to meet their best vision for their lives. And we also seek to make a generational impact. We don't want to just make decisions that address a crisis. As one of my policy friends reminded me, we don't want to put a Band-Aid on a big crack in a sidewalk. We want to actually think about how do we make decisions today that will still be sound 3 generations from now. Next slide. And so this is a moment to elevate our values and also recognize that truth-telling means coming to some hard realities about what our current system has done to people. And one of the things that we talk about in the BHA is it's important to acknowledge that harm has been done. And that's a tough thing to say as a state official, but we have to acknowledge that. And so many people are seeking change. In fact, when we look at truth, we have to acknowledge that for our Black and Latinx community in Colorado, they are experiencing what's written here on this slide, that their path for seeking treatment is unfortunately a criminal pathway. And if you're a person of color and also happen to have a mental health or substance use disorder problem, you're more likely to be incarcerated than treated. And that's not just Colorado, that is a national trend, but it's one that I believe we are ready to correct with our model and with our values. Next slide. When we talk about the value of equity, we have to understand and appreciate the historical legacy of what has happened with regard to substance use and addiction, and not just stigma, but the actual institutional policies that supported a shift from criminalization in the 1980s and the war on drugs to now a shift of treatment and open doors and recovery. And we're glad to see that shift. But in the meantime, we have to find a way to reach communities that lived through the era of punishment and now may be hesitant to enter this era of recovery and treatment and harm reduction. We've got to try to find a way to navigate that. Next slide. Meaningful collaboration for the BHA means that we don't just wash over history, but we grapple with history so that we can make history. Next slide. We understand that it's also important to acknowledge the cultures that exist in our state. This is an incredibly rich cultural environment in Colorado. I have been truly blessed by the opportunity to meet with diverse groups, tribes, and other governments, county commissioners. It's been deeply enriching for me. And as we appreciate the cultural humility that's needed in our behavioral health workforce, it doesn't just stop there. We also need structural humility, understanding that the outcomes we have gotten are because the system was designed to produce those outcomes. And so how do we redesign a system that gives us the outcomes that truly make a generational impact? Next slide. As we think about this vision for equity, mother and child, generational impact, we have to think through how do we create meaningful and thoughtful action to truly bring forth a new legacy in our state. Next slide. To heal and recover, we believe we have to approach all people of Colorado with a strength-based approach. We can't see ourselves within the BHA or our communities outside of the BHA from a deficit-based lens. That yes, a lot of things have happened in our current system, and there are some strengths in each community that can help us move forward. Next slide. As we talk about a strengths-based approach, I have now said hundreds of times that our framework is we want to bring the change with you and not do the change to you. And so capacity building means relinquishing this deficit-based model of community that it takes state government coming in and just identifying deficits and filling gaps. That's not really our model. Our model is our communities know how to act in their best interest. We simply have to give them the microphone to voice their own vision. Next slide. And so we talk about psychological safety in order to do this work as staff of the BHA. And we also want to extend that psychological safety to all of our boards. That safety has to work in community. We want you to feel that this board is a safe space for us to learn and contribute, to challenge, to resist, all without fear of being embarrassed, marginalized, or somehow punished. This ought to be a place where we can have healthy conflict and debate so that we get to the real issues that will make a difference and a life-saving difference for the people of our state. Next slide. Authentic partnership to us means acting responsibly and in the best interest of all people in Colorado. You know that every single BHA team member, including myself, has someone they've known, loved, or lost who needed a people-first behavioral health system. And so we're building a system that is not only worthy of the people of Colorado, but one that we would want our own family members to be a part of. Authentic partnership for us means also acknowledging, again, how we take purposeful action to make meaningful remedies. It means upholding the values that were just reviewed so that we can function, again, as a community anchor and a source of change and innovation. It means that with you, we want to talk about what are the outcomes we're seeking? And so what are the data and metrics that help us measure our approach to those outcomes? You know, data for the sake of data can also do harm. So we want to talk with you about what's the data that actually gets us closer to knowing we've made a generational impact. One of our staff members asked me, Dr. Medlock, how will we know we've made a difference? And I said, well, no, we've made a difference when people are no longer saying that we've been harmed by the behavioral health system, but when they're saying, because of the work you did, I'm now able to go to work, I'm in recovery, I'm able to parent, and I'm seeing a generational impact in my own family. That's where we want to go. Next slide. We are, as we think about the priorities of this year, some of these things, hopefully you've seen. Yumiko, let's get this group, the General Assembly report that just came out, that was just released. I want to share with you that the I Matter program is continuing. That's exciting, free therapy for every youth in the state. Obviously, we have launched the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council, and they will complement your work here on the BPAC. We're also hoping to have crosstalk across our boards, our youth board, BPAC, BHAC. You can stay on this slide for a minute or two. So we want crosstalk, not only across the BHA boards, we have 4 boards in the BHA, but we want to have crosstalk, if you're interested, across other agencies' lived expertise boards. I think that would be pretty neat, but I just submit that for your review. For instance, there's a housing lived expertise board. I think it would be great if that board could talk to this board. And we really begin to leverage the model of the BHA in terms of cross-agency work. I think that would be awesome, but of course, that's for your review and consideration. We also host every month a council meeting of all cabinet members. We met yesterday, and we have been doing that since July 1st. And we want to ensure that at the cabinet level, as we all work under Governor Polis's vision, that we are working cross-agency to achieve that vision. Also want to let you know that the BASOs, the new regional structures for ensuring integrated behavioral health care, we have started that stakeholder engagement. We started internally with staff, and we're now working our way to various communities. I see someone's commenting in the chat. We also released the workforce strategic plan, and we hope to release the larger vision for the entire state, statewide plan by the end of this calendar year. Yumiko will be coming to you with a strategic planning activity soon to address that need. Yumiko's also going to be rolling out the county assessment tool, where we can begin to think through. She's busy. Oh yeah, that's right. She's busy. Encourage Yumiko. I see someone sitting by her. Yeah, encourage Yumiko. She's going to be tired. And so she is also releasing the county assessment tool to help our local leaders at the county level, help us see what's missing in the continuum locally so we can support them with our continuum of care grant dollars that we have this year. That's $36 million to invest in the local continuum. I'm also really excited about the criminal justice deflection grant program, $51.5 million, which we're hoping can be invested in local communities and local crisis centers so that law enforcement can bring people into the crisis centers and not to jail. That is the vision. We're also working on a massive rule rewrite process that you just heard about. And we know we need to get caught up there in terms of proper stakeholder engagement. And we're meeting tomorrow to figure out how do we do that with you, with our boards, with community, so that everyone is a part of that process. And then for the first time ever, by next July, we hope to have a first public report of grievances. You know, grievances is a word that comes with a lot of weight, but we believe it's important to have the instances of when people have not gotten the care they deserve in one report so that we can all look at that as a board and figure out what created these gaps and how can we move forward. I'll take the next slide. And so we invite you to follow along with us on this journey on our new website that's fully accessible and sensitive to various needs in terms of low vision or no vision, et cetera. Our website is fully accessible to all individuals, bha.colorado.gov. If you look under data and performance, you will find our implementation dashboard. And then if you go to publications, we're soon going to be posting the General Assembly report there. The workforce report is also published there. Next slide. As I close, I want to be sure that you know about the OwnPath care directory. This is the first official product of the BHA. It will be a trademark of the BHA. We believe that every person in Colorado deserves to define and discover their own path to healing. And so this Own Path website was developed with lived experts across the state. Next slide. Let's throw up those QR codes. If you haven't been on the website, it's up in English and Spanish. We're going to be adding some other languages, Arabic and so forth, as we continue to build a platform. But please do use the platform and give us feedback on the user experience there. As you see, as you go on the website, people are able to ask for unique supports, to select a preferred language of their therapist, to also select other supports that they desire as they enter treatment. So check that out, and there's a feedback form on there if you see something that needs to be updated. Next slide. And so this is the invitation today. As we move forward today with Bhpac and all of our boards, we want to invite a people first mindset, systems thinking, not just putting a Band-Aid on massive chasms, but really thinking systemically about what are the policy levers that will lead to whole person health. The invitation is to be proactive and comprehensive, to be bold, and to always tell the truth with one another. And so the final slide says nothing for us without us. That's the vision. The BHA is the people's agency. We need to listen to the people of Colorado first. We need to establish processes that support people. And then we need to systematize the ways that people can engage in those state processes, people, process, performance. That's our model in the BHA. Thank you so much. It's been great to be with you. I can stay on for a couple minutes for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Medlock. Task force, open for questions and dialogue with our good doctor, who has some thoughts they would like to share.
I do.
Please go.
This is the first I've heard of the county assessment tool, and I think it's a great idea. One of the things I've been thinking about the past couple of years that I've been on this council is how do we reach out to the rural areas of the state? I think you came to our Frontier House in Greeley. So, you know, that's not very far to drive. Imagine 2 or 3 times that. The people coming from Grand Junction today, Nat and I went out to Grand Junction. Good grief. It wasn't just 5 hours, the 5-hour drive, but it was the preparing the night before, like the guys that just got back and you were out in the middle of the night going to Sterling at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of turf. The state pays me a mileage stipend when I go into Denver for this meeting. That's very nice. I would like to see if the state could provide vehicles or if they could provide mileage that we could go out, divide the state up into 4 parts, northeast, northwest. And on one of the days that we have this meeting, we go to a location there and we invite all the people from that area to come, because man, Denver, everybody just says, oh, well, you just go to Denver. Like everybody lives in Aurora, you know, but we don't. So I would like to see how we can get some support in traveling to be able to reach out and hear the people. So we're going out and we're listening to these people. That's what we're supposed to do. One of the things we're supposed to do. I'm supposed to listen to people. I'm supposed to be myself and then come to Bhpac and give what I found. So that's what I would like to see. And this Own Path, that sounds great too. I'm going to take that back to the clubhouse. I think it'll help a lot of people who have trouble understanding goals. Like, what do you mean? We're going to play soccer? So I think that'll be very helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for the comment. And I will say that my original vision for the Bhpac was that it would be linked to the commissioner's state tour that I'm on, and that we would do exactly what you just said, that we would host the actual meetings in various parts of the state, that there would be public testimony and a big rah-rah. Well, the BHAC has changed their model and they mainly want to do virtual. However, if the BPAC decides that they kind of want to be more of a mobile board, I think that would again be another complementary role to the BHAC. And so that was actually what I originally envisioned. And the BHAC chose a different approach to their work. So I think we can think through that because that was the original vision.
Yeah, and we meet 10 months out of the year. So we would have 6 months where we could go to Denver, which is very valuable. You're seeing a lot of state people there. But then the other 4 we could insert throughout the year. Thanks.
This is Margie Grimsley. In thinking also, there's the collaborative management program. There's other state entities that sometimes when you're doing your road trip, it might be really valuable to invite some of those other state partnerships. There is a collaborative management state steering committee. Just thinking when you are in those communities, being able to include some of those groups, because that might help with the silos that we have between our different boards and pieces of legislation where people are meeting together. Because not everybody can travel everywhere, but when you are there, if you could invite those people to come, I think that would be an invaluable way for you to get resources or hear information and hear from people you might not otherwise hear from.
I like that a lot. That's exactly right. Thank you.
Hi, this is Angie Wold. I work for Addiction Research and Treatment Services, better known as ARTS. And I was happy to see that you referenced the criminal justice population. What are the plans to kind of incorporate them into this larger BHA, because they've often been overlooked in the treatment community and really kind of fall through the cracks?
Well, I think there's a couple things here. One, we've got to truly have a deflection system, and it's got to be court-based and a clinical intervention that's available for folks. So on the court-based judicial partnership, Leora Joseph, the new director of the Office of Civil and Forensic Mental Health within CDHS, that's the new name for the Office of Behavioral Health as the BHA has now launched. She and I actually met with 28 judges at the judicial conference in Vail last month. And so the next steps is that Director Joseph is going to begin hosting with the BHA a judges collaborative where we really have judicial decisions to ensuring that charges are not applied in cases where a mental health concern is the driver. The other piece is obviously the clinical intervention that we need to have. It's not just enough to drop charges and send people back out, but how do we have a proper system to support those at risk of justice involvement? And that's where I think our crisis convenings that the BHA has already held twice, and our third one is on Halloween. That may be, a harbinger of bad, but it is on Halloween, our third crisis convening, and we're going to be talking about again reimagining crisis as a true transfer point from law enforcement into the clinical setting. We would ideally appreciate first responders being able to recognize mental health concerns and come into our crisis centers rather than even taking people to jail in the first place. So that's our larger vision. And then we've got to do some training with our workforce. And so our Learning Academy is going to be particularly focused on helping providers understand interventions that are possible when they encounter people that again would normally be funneled through criminal pathways, and what we can do to actually support their dignity and recovery. You also heard me mention today the pot of money that's in Senate Bill 196 for criminal justice deflection. We are to administer that program with the Department of Public Safety. I think it's an incredible opportunity. Crisis centers can use that for even capital improvements. And I think it would be a great opportunity to actually ensure, for instance, that crisis centers that don't have beds attached can actually have true resources in the center so that when people come in police custody, there's truly a place to receive rest and healing.
And then in the short term, I guess it'd be the short term, you know, we have programs that treat those that are coming out of prison and trying to help kind of rehabilitate or habilitate them to reintegrate into the community. Those are often, so I totally understand trying to get them at the beginning of the pipeline, but we are going to have a chunk of time where we're still having to handle those coming out prior to all of these interventions. So are those folks being considered about how to handle them so that they have opportunities?
So I would say the direct alignment with the BHA on that issue, and unfortunately in the BHA model, forensic services overall is still split out and remains under human services. However, I will say that I think our Momentum program is probably the most closely aligned with the vision that you're uplifting. That program is designed to support any person exiting an institutional setting with high intensity case management and wraparound support.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone, I have kept my 10 o'clock meeting waiting. It is so good to see you. I will come back again. Thanks for all you do for the people of Colorado.
We appreciate you.
All right, send me a burrito. Bye now.
Done. We've got so many because you guys didn't show up, you task force members. All right, next month. All right. So we are at the next part of our agenda, talking about strategic planning and outcome activities. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Yamoko.
Okay, so Donda, if you don't mind pulling up my slides now, I think we've given Donda like 3 or 4 slide decks for this meeting. And I'm sorry that the BHA is speaking the whole first half of this meeting, but this will be more of an interactive activity here. So you may have caught Dr. Medlock saying that by the end of this calendar year, the BHA is going to be releasing a statewide strategic vision and strategic plan. So we are in the process of doing that. Donda, if you go to the next slide and the next one. And if you saw those timelines that Dr. Medlock pointed out, they're pretty crazy, right? Everything is happening right now. So I put this slide up to remind everyone that there were 2 to 3 years of stakeholder engagement, massive stakeholder engagement that led to the very creation of the BHA. And so we're not starting from total scratch, right? We are building off of all of the things we heard. And this is just a visual of through the creation of the BHA, all the types of engagements across the state, across different stakeholder groups that had a voice in designing the BHA. So I just wanted to say that we are doing the best we can to do as much stakeholder engagement as we can over the next couple months. And let's not forget, a lot of voices have already been in this process, and we are not forgetting those. So next slide, Donda. And so when we talk about building a strategic vision or a strategic plan, again, there are a lot of foundational elements that are already in place. The BHA has a mission, vision, and values, which Dr. Medlock presented on some of that. We have a lot of foundational legislation. The Behavioral Health Task Force, which was instrumental in designing the BHA, came up with 19 priorities. We have pillars. We have everything you can think of, needs assessments, action plans, lots of things, right? So all of these things, again, are culminating into what we're going to put together as our strategic plan. Again, we're not starting from scratch. So what we did at the BHA is we essentially did a crosswalk of all those different things, of the various needs assessments that have been done, of the various priorities, the legislation that's been put out there. And we did a big crosswalk of all of these things. And we came up with these 4 kind of broad categories or statements that we're calling now our strategic priorities. So you can see them there on the screen. And so one of the questions, and of course, we'll send these slides out. I know it's a little bit hard to read, but one of the questions is we want to make sure with stakeholders that these 4 buckets, if you will, really fit your view of the BHA's objectives over the next 3 years. And if there's anything that's missing, right? So I'll just read them quickly for those of you who may not be able to read them on your screens. So the first one is a little bit more internally facing, but it's to build and retain a BHA team whose work embodies the BHA's values of truth, collaboration, community-informed practice, and generational impact, and who strive for excellence and accountability through an integrated, networked approach that results in a trusted and respected organization. So that's a bit more about building the BHA over the next couple of years so that we truly can be the agency to serve all of you. The second one is to build and maintain an equitable, easy to access behavioral health system of care that meets the needs of the whole person, no matter who they are, no matter where they are in the state, with a diverse, skilled, supported workforce that meets the state's diverse needs. The third one, develop a highly accountable behavioral health system that prioritizes transparent performance standards, quality improvement, and data integration. And then the final one is to drive coordination and collaboration with and across state agencies, with counties and regions statewide to support a community-informed model of excellence for behavioral health services and payment across the continuum. So those are the 4 that we came up with. So first, any reactions, anything you think is grossly missing from these 4 statements or that you would like to see better called out in any of these statements?
And these statements pertain to the BHA and its task force. Is this how we should be reviewing these 4?
This is for the BHA as an agency.
So this is the priorities for the BHA as an agency.
Yes. So another way to think about it from BPAC's perspective is these are the things you will hold the BHA accountable to working towards, right, over the next few years.
All right. I was trying to bring it home to us.
Yeah.
So these are your principles as employees as you think things through strategically that we as community that join these task forces need to be working within these boxes to make sure these things are happening, as well as our own strategic planning process that we have with the task force. So I would imagine they need to be aligned.
Yep, that's a great point. Yes.
So because you guys have created this and BPAC will be in sync immediately because it's brand new, but BPAC is one of the longest standing task force in the state. So we probably have to spend some time on this task force members understanding how to infuse their strategic priorities in our decision-making on how we go about viewing the block grant, how we make recommendations, how we look at populations we serve. So we probably need to spend a little bit of time on this, digesting it, but do we want to go to questions or is there more slides?
There are more. And I do see one question. Will there be more language around diversity and inclusion? Yes. So
well, do we want to do questions now or do we want to finish the slides?
Okay, let's finish them. Don, if you go to the next one, and this is just an example. Okay, this is not finalized by any means, but this is just to show you, right? So on the top there, I said that's one of those strategic priorities that we had in that last slide. And then in the BHA, we have a lot of what's and how's, as you saw in Dr. Medlock's slide, and a lot of this comes from legislation. There is a lot we have to accomplish, right? And we talk a lot about how we're going to accomplish these things. What I kind of wanted to focus on, A, is making sure you saw those 4 buckets, but also what we've really been realizing at the BHA is while over the next few years, we know a lot of the what's and the how's, we don't have yet what are our desired outcomes, right? What are the measurable, tangible outcomes we want to see? And Dr. Medlock mentioned this question, how will we know when we're successful? And so in our minds, again, a lot of this has almost been determined for us, right? We kind of inherited a lot of these things and priorities. But what we wanted to talk about too is what do we think the outcome should be and how do we measure those things? So Donna, if you go to the next slide. Oh, real quick, right? Why are outcomes important, right? Those are kind of the anchors. Again, as Bob was saying, right, to make sure we're all on the same page and working towards the same things, that we can really focus our efforts on what we think is most important. We can measure the impact we're having and course correct. If a year from now we see that the outcome measures we've created, they're not moving, right? Then we need to have a conversation about what is it about the hows and the whats that aren't matching up with and moving our outcomes. So next slide, Donna. This is just a quick visual of a logic model you may have heard from, but it's essentially how to put these pieces together, right? And I like to think of it as working backwards. If we determine what outcomes we want to see in our communities, how do we work backwards to say, therefore, these are the things we need the BHA and partners to be doing, right? So Donna, next slide. And this slide shows you some examples of things, right? Some statistics of currently in Colorado. And I put these up because this gets you closer to actual outcomes and things we can measure, right? 1 out of 3 adults has symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorder in Colorado as of June 2022. We have the 7th highest suicide rate in the United States. Less than 1 in 3 of Coloradans in need of mental health care actually receive it, especially in rural counties, which we talked about a little bit earlier, right? So these are some things, these are the things who we want to be able to move, right? And so when we talk about outcomes, these are some things you can be thinking about. Next slide, Donna. And so I tried to design a simple activity just to get some of your thoughts. And so if we think of just broadly, right, creating the behavioral health system that we want, starting to get a little bit more granular in terms of what do we want to change for the people of Colorado. And I put long-term and short-term because I think it's important to look at both, right? In the short term, we usually think about what's going to change in terms of attitudes, in terms of behaviors, knowledge, skills. And then in the longer term, again, that question of what does success actually look like? How will we know, right, when we've done these things and we've done them right? And then the middle one is, you know, I think sometimes, and we heard that in the question, I forget who asked it, Laureen, about rural areas, right? A lot of this we're designing for the state as a whole, but who do we need to make sure that we are providing more targeted nuanced support? What populations need special attention, so to speak? So these are kind of the 3 questions that I created for today. In the room here, I have some Post-it notes so we can just kind of capture our ideas. And Donna, if you can put in the chat for folks who are online, I also created a Jamboard. I don't know if folks are familiar with Jamboards, but it's essentially doing sticky notes electronically. And so I was thinking, Bob, as we kind of bleed into the break, if folks could think about these questions, add sticky notes either here in the room or online to the Jamboard as they come to you. And we would love to collect your thoughts on these outcomes. We're traveling to various groups and stakeholders to do similar activities. So we're getting some of these thoughts from various people. But that's the ask. Does anybody need a quick overview of Jamboard? before we release you?
I would do it.
Okay, so Jamboard, so Donda, if you could hover over the sticky note, or maybe you could share your screen, Donda, with the Jamboard up there.
We're learning something new, y'all.
Jamboard? Yeah, only two on different trainings.
So there's 3 questions, right? So up at the very top, you'll see there's 3 pages that you can toggle to. Each page has one of the questions on them.
Okay, cool.
And then over on the left-hand side, Donda's putting her cursor over a sticky note. So all you do is click on the sticky note and it's just like you would do it. You can pick the color and you write your comments, you hit save, and it shows up on the board, and then we can collect all of these sticky notes for later and have them. And then you can toggle to another question and add your sticky notes.
I think that is absolutely
Isn't
really
that
cool.
fun?
But
Yes.
I've only did it twice, so then I have to remember.
And all of you online, Donda put a link in the chat. So you should be able to just pull up this Jamboard on your own and have at it.
All right, so we are at the point of getting ready to take a break. So while you're on break, go ahead and click the link and start learning how to do the sticky notes. You're going to toggle through the 3 sections as we heard and answer the questions. I am going to go ahead and move us to 10:15 for our break. So that way you have adequate time to learn, click, and do the sticky process, because that's really cool. So we will come back at 10:45 because I'm going to be getting us out of here early. So I want us to make sure that we have enough time to do sticky. And I will see you all at 10:45 and we can stop recording. Thank you and welcome back, everybody. We are, do we finish up the strategic planning and outcomes, or do we go on to bylaw review? Where would you like to go?
I see lots and lots of sticky notes. So thank you all so much for your thoughts. We actually had a good discussion here in the room as well about this and got an earful from Bob, which was great. So I guess we could wrap it up just by saying anything anyone wants to just say, reflections, thoughts from this exercise. And otherwise, I will definitely bring all of these back and we will incorporate them in what we're doing with the strategic plan.
For transparency reasons, what I was talking to Yamoko about, I want to make sure that I let the rest of the task force members know. One of the areas when they were showing us the 4 boxes of priorities, as well as the sticky assignment that we were just asked to go through, one of my biggest concerns we have, and we've talked about this in Bhpac, and for some of you that have known me for several years, there's 2 concerns that I've had for a very long time that we need to address as a task force. One, we are still not given data on day codes. We don't know what's happening in Colorado. We do not get report outs on day codes. The other assessment that we're mandated to do is a CCAR for mental health. We do not get that information. So therefore, when you're asked to come up with priorities, you're asked to come up with goals, and you're asked to come up with the way to evaluate a system, you can't evaluate a system and come up with goals and objectives if you don't know the data of the community we're serving. So we're all required to fill this out. It goes to the state, but we have not had a generated report back. So my biggest concern coming out of the pandemic is what's trending right now. Our CCARs and our day codes have that information. And if we are being tasked by Bhpac and Bhac to do this work, you need data that we are collecting, but we just don't get the data from the state. So I encourage all of you that are on this commission and other commissions to start asking for this data from the state. Because if we are to be informed and if we are to be good stewards of public funds, as we've been appointed to this commission, we need to know what's going on in our communities through the data we're currently collecting. My second point that I raised, my concern is client engagement. We're talking all this great stuff about the BHA. We're talking about all this great stuff with Bhpac, but it's all very high level. And we're talking about trying to get out into community. When I think of client engagement, it's all the way down to the streets. It's TikTok, it's advertising, it's everything where a client can access behavioral health care or recovery supports. So when we're doing this work, I want to remind us all that it's really important to think about client engagement and make sure that we are where the clients are when we're doing these goals and objectives. So these 2 points, while I'm the chair, I'm going to continue to press the state on this. But if we are really going to increase capacity and bring people into Colorado's behavioral health and recovery system, we need to meet people where they're at. And you meet people where they're at by knowing the data. So we have 2 issues that I think is significant for this group, and I'll bring it up at Bhpac as well. But it's going to be difficult to do some of this work without this data. So at this point, that's my responsibility as the chair, and I would like to open it up for discussion.
Hey, Bob, would you be so kind as to send an email out describing a little further what you were talking about in your first item? Because I had no idea what you were talking about. I'm not in the business, so to speak, but I want to pass that message on to people I know who are, and I can't do it now because I don't understand it.
Absolutely. So if you have a substance use diagnosis in Colorado and you are in a licensed organization, you have to do something that's called a day code. It is required by the block grant, and we are all on the block grant. The other requirement of the block grant, if you have a mental health diagnosis, is called a CCAR. So both of these collect data, and both of these can offer us what the diagnosis is, mainly in Colorado, what's the main substance, what's the second substance we see in Colorado, and we can also see kind of what's driving Colorado's mental health issues. What are we seeing more when people are doing assessments? So that's a very high level review of what those 2 assessments do, but they are directly related to this commission and the block grant funding because they are mandatory.
Okay, thanks. I got day code. What was the other thing that you said?
CCAR.
Could you spell that?
C-CAR.
Is it fee as in Frank or?
C as in cat, dash,
Okay.
C as Colorado, A as in apple, R as in real.
Thanks.
So any other discussion we would like to have on this? Anyone have thoughts on my statements as something we need to pay attention to and start asking for?
I would just say as a response, the BHA is actually totally restructuring and building out their data team. Just hired a chief data, I forget the exact title, chief data officer. If you would like to explore this issue more as a committee, I'm more than happy to try to get someone from the data team who can hear some of your thoughts, answer questions on what they're working on and what their priorities are within the data unit of the BHA.
Clarifying question related to CCAR and day codes. Don't they use both those pieces, that data to complete the NOMS, and that is where the information would be in the NOMS every year? The national outcome measures that OBH is required to report back to the federal government on how we are doing in the state of Colorado, the NOMS, wouldn't the CCAR and day codes information be there?
How would we know?
It's supposed to be there, and that's how they should be reporting back to SAMHSA. But Laura, my concern is we are not given that at a task force level to continue to make the recommendations. So
Yeah.
You know, when it's time to review the block grant, we don't know if, you know, do we have a meth epidemic again? Is it a heroin epidemic? We don't have anything to show us what's trending. So, you know, and that's been a problem for a long time. But my bigger concern now that the pandemic is over is what has happened during the pandemic with Colorado's consumers of behavioral health. That data exists. I just think we need to get that from the past 2 years now and review it before we go down too far making recommendations. I don't know what the past 2 years looks like for any of us because we've not been presented anything. So Laura, I would imagine that's somewhere it lives. I just don't know who to shake out of the tree because I've never been able to get anyone to come to this task force and deliver that information.
Yeah, I would agree with you that we need that information. I also would caution though that I think the information needs to be qualified, that the data is probably not that great. Since the Ray takeover and the possible change for CCAR and day codes several years ago to the DII, I think quite simply many providers across the state just stopped doing CCARs and day codes completely. I know that to be true in many organizations, and so therefore the data is not going to be good. But I agree that we still need something. We have no base to work on to even make recommendations if we don't know what's happening in this state.
Maybe we just.
This is Margie. I think it ties into also there's data collected in different places. I talk about collaborative management program. They're collecting data from those counties that are collaborative management counties that get sent for that legislation. There's a lot of things that can be learned from data that is not collectively shared, and that where we can learn from each other. And I think the BHA, in doing a revamping of everything, that's critically important for you to understand where data is being collected from our different worlds and how it can be integrated so we truly have a clear picture of what is happening. I know with collaborative management, they've been doing a family survey, which gave really valuable information on how families felt about what they were receiving in their counties. Well, that process is going to change internally. So it's just kind of like, where are we collecting? What are we learning? And if sitting on a shelf someplace, it really isn't worth the time that it's taken to collect it if we're not using it appropriately.
Further discussion? If I'm not hearing further discussion, I would like to know if someone would like to make a motion to request the state to look into the day code CCAR situation to bring back to us information on either giving us the data or letting us know that it's in process. But I do believe it's a fair question to ask. So that way we can make our decisions based on the information we need. So do we want to make a motion? Do we want to have further discussion, or would we like to kill this discussion? So I need a little bit more discussion before we have a motion.
Bob, I just wanted to suggest, I don't have to deal with those codes, thankfully for me, but it sounds like a real nightmare. And I just wanted to suggest that as an option, one thing that the organization I work with is doing is open source research. It's kind of an IT term, but it's basically, you know, maybe if nobody else is gathering the data, perhaps Bhpac should, where all of the people here could collect the data that we're actually seeing, the information that we have. I don't know if BHA would recognize that as the reality it would be, but I'm just suggesting if the old data system isn't working, perhaps a new one should be created, and maybe we're the people to do it. That's all.
I'll speak. My question, and I'm also non-clinical, but I work with clinical staff. So I'm wondering, I mean, I would be happy to motion because I think we should ask the question of where the data is and how to get it back. The other point for me that I'm thinking about is someone said, you know, they aren't doing the day codes anymore or the CCAR, and I don't know how that is because our place has to do them. So maybe that's a question of what is going to be required as far as input, data entry input on this new licensure piece. So is there going to be someone qualifying and checking off, is this agency, is this entity doing, are they in time? Are they in line with their data entry being done?
Yeah, so if you're licensed and receiving public
Because
funds.
you have to be doing it, correct?
And you receive block grant
Yeah.
funds, you have to do these assessments. So,
'Cause we do, I
so the
know.
assessments are happening and there's a lot of data in Colorado. So,
Because
all right.
otherwise we're just relying on a different source. Like, for example, in Pueblo, we rely heavily on the health department to tell us what are the trends, unless we are using the peer workforce in that county who comes and tells us what they're seeing.
All
right.
So, and what I'm saying back to you is there is data that
Yes.
clearly is being collected
Which is
by,
why we should get it.
from Crossroads.
Yes.
You can actually get it granular to your agency. Okay, that's what I'm trying to
Yes,
say.
I know. That's why I'm saying,
So,
yes, I would motion for it.
are we ready to make a motion? Are you guys interested in getting data from the state and asking for them to start the process? If you are, someone please make a motion.
Well, I will be happy to motion for that because I actually think anytime that we have, that we're already collecting data, that it's useful and helpful to have.
Do I have a
Have it to make
second?
decisions.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All right, we're going to move to a vote now. If you use your waving of your hands or put your hand up in the, push your little yellow hand to put it up in your screens there so I can start counting. That'll be great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And what's our census today?
That's a majority of it.
Okay,
We
so,
have 22 to start off with. We're down to 16 participants plus in the.
all right, well, that we still have quorum, the motion passes. So, right here, the water will be carried back to the state and we will either get a report on where the data is, how it's being analyzed, and how it can come back to Bhpac for us to digest it and review it, make decisions on our work. Thank you, everyone, for that. We're at the bylaws and review part of our agenda now for discussion. Yep. You might.
Donda, do you mind pulling that same slideshow back up? The bylaws is just the second section in it. And folks, I know you've been wanting to revise the bylaws for quite a while. So all I did was put some of the main sections on slides, right, in more manageable chunks with some potential questions for you to discuss. And hopefully we can chip away at it. I know there was some ask by the state to kind of push some of this. And so we are definitely willing, but I think there's some sections that require some discussion. So Donda, if you go to the next section, this is just, this is from State Board of Human Services and the bylaw sections that they have. And just a suggestion, right, of how to organize the bylaws. Interestingly, when I took a look at them, that very first piece, talking about creation and the key duties of this council, I think you may want to beef up more, especially with the new BHA, with other councils coming on board and what your role is. I think there's definitely some room for more there. So Donda, if you go to the next section, or the next slide, sorry. This is the very first piece of your bylaws. It's the preamble. And in the preamble, currently there are 5 core principles that are laid out there. The only piece that I really highlighted, and I know this council ever since I've joined just a few months ago, has always been very, very thoughtful about the diverse representation in terms of covering the whole continuum, behavioral health continuum, ensuring we have lived experience, voices on the council, et cetera. And so I think these core principles reflect some of that. My only, the reason I highlighted your 51%, it's currently for people in recovery and family members. So just a couple things to point out. Later on in the bylaws, this section or the 51% includes advocacy grous. So you'll have to determine, do you want to include advocacy groups in the 51% or not? And then also, is it limited to, when we talk about people with lived experience, do you want to specify that it's people in recovery and family members? So those were just my thoughts, but Bob, this was the first section I thought folks could just discuss, is kind of laying out these core principles right off the bat. And if there's any revisions or thoughts on this section.
All right, task force members discussion.
Mr. Bob, I kind of like having 51% of people in recovery and family members. And I think the other 49% might include advocacy groups. If the advocacy groups is made up of family members, like NAMI is predominantly that way, I think, then it might fit in the 51%. But it's hard, I think, to get some people involved in this sort of thing. And if we tell them we have to make a quota, they're more inclined to help us out and serve on the task force, I think.
The language tweaked.
How do council members feel about these 5 core principles? And are these 5 core principles currently something we're comfortable with, something we're doing, something we need to update? Things have really changed. So is this reflective of who we are or what we want to be?
This is Margie. I always feel very strongly that we need to make sure that we are integrating our family members that have children with mental health challenges that might not. So it's just, I think what makes this council so unique is it does have that 51% of people in recovery and family members, and that can certainly cross over on what type of family member my lived experience is. So I think maybe it's, do we leave it kind of open so people can self-interpret? I can share a family members, a definition for family members that we use. But I think this is where, how all-inclusive do we want to be, and how are we breaking down when we are representing an organization versus our own individuals. And as Lorraine said, I certainly could qualify as both, but you just, we have to be able to do this in a way that is respectful of having that broad perspective of people being represented at our table.
The 49%, as I recall, Margie, just to answer one of your questions right away, 49% is for agencies and people who represent agencies. So that's how I'm on the commission as 49%. So the 51% is always going to be individuals and not agencies. And I think that should be spelled out very clearly. So I would agree with you, Margie.
And then I think and then with this, I guess because membership, we talk about this a lot. And so then it's 51% of that are people.
That's correct.
And then the agencies, then we fit those into with the state, and then are the state representatives totally separate in the dynamic? So it's kind of a third, a third, a third.
The state has always been required participants. So they haven't necessarily in the past, now I'm speaking history, they don't represent 51% and they don't represent the 49% because that's not how the task force is set up. But the state, the way I understand our bylaws and how we have functioned, are required seats based in the statute in the way that this was set up. So that way the block grant is being adequately supported throughout multiple state agencies and that we have access to multiple state agencies. So those state seats, Margie, from all my experience on being on the task force, are not a part of the 49%.
Okay, so I think even just thinking in terms of a visual, we have 3 boxes.
Correct.
And so for those 3 boxes, it would be I'm a family member, a person in recovery, 1 box, then the agency box, and then the state box. So that would be, I think that's always important to clarify. Then for the number 3, and council will have a balance. These, from my perspective, these must have gone with the different subcommittees. Or was prevention, treatment, and recovery, is that written in?
So because of the block grant that we supervise has those core components in the federal funds that we receive, those are the areas that we are mandated to make recommendations on. We receive a prevention SUDS block grant, we receive the treatment and mental health, and then with inside SAMHSA is recovery supports. So we do have to have a core representation of subcommittees to those domains. But these aren't just, these are mandated, I guess, to answer your question more specifically. So yes, those have to stay, but we can always add.
Thank you. I've always, that clarifies it for me and hopefully for others.
Yeah, that's funding. Prevention is funding, treatment is funding, mental health is funding, and recovery is funding. And that's how it comes from SAMHSA to us. So those subcommittees have to stay and we have to make recommendations based on that, and how the state then takes our recommendations and makes the decision on how to allocate those funds and then put the RFPs out into the community based on those strategic plans and recommendations of this council. So we can always add to support these domains, and we have added, but those 4 have to stay. Did you have questions, Margie, on number 4?
No, I'm good on 4 and 5. So thank you. That helped, and I hoped it was helpful for others.
Bob, I was just going to comment back to what we started out with about whether the individuals in recovery and family members included the advocacy, because it mentions later on, and that's what was brought up. So I'm wondering, we have talked about, like Margie, you were saying, you could be both an advocate and a person in recovery and a family member, as could several of us. So I'm wondering if it doesn't mean that we have to remove the word advocate later on, but just maybe tweak the language or the verbiage to define, instead of maybe a capital A advocate, maybe it's a lowercase advocate.
Yeah, so
something of that sort.
Right. So as an example, I'm here representing Mile High Behavioral Healthcare. My seat is MSO, Managed Service Organization Signal, and I'm also a family member. So therefore, I tick a lot of boxes. But the way I arrived through my application, so you have to think about your application, and I can hit many boxes, but my application was for the MSO agency seat.
Yeah.
But I'm also a member of the 51%. Right.
Absolutely.
So that's how we are integrated and blended in this council. So the 49% has a lot of lived experience, and that's why a lot of us sign up in it. But for the 51%, that's the key component that needs to be made up of community and lived experience. And then we have the opportunity of the professionals that are currently working in the industry and representing pots of money, agencies, state agencies. That's 49%. And then the ex officio members, as I like to call them, which are the state employees.
I just want to mention real quick, this is Yumiko again. There was a note that I believe a member of BPAC made within the Google Doc where all this came from, was that there was a request to add dual diagnosis to that, I believe that very first one.
And I have a quick just comment or question, I guess, because I hear what everybody is saying, but I think it's also important that we acknowledge certain organizations like mine and many others. We are a statewide advocacy organization, meaning we, in a lot of situations, are the voice of the recovery community, especially to rural areas. So if I'm hearing it correctly, like, I can't speak for those communities. So what I've done is I've invited my regional managers so that they can get a better sense, so they can go to their communities and bring in individuals. Is that kind of what we're talking about, is what should be done? Because yes, I'm here representing probably the 49% because I'm a director of an organization, but I also am an advocate, and I bring the community voice that we serve throughout the state to groups like this so that they are heard.
James, you're 100% correct.
Yep.
You're following the role to the T of what BPAC is about. Yes.
So then hence, Candace, Travis, they should really be able to take this information back to their communities and bring in the actual community members that would fit under that true 51%. So my following question is, me, like a lot of us, are getting ready to term off. And that's also why I'm bringing Travis. Therein hence, can I reapply as being just a person in recovery, not affiliated with Advocates for Recovery Colorado?
You absolutely can, because if you were in an agency seat in your application, we have had people apply back as individuals. I do want to let everyone know that there is a section on our agenda at 11:30 is where we are to be inviting community, and you're supposed to be talking about community. So we've built in, that's what's going on in our community. So James, you can have people speak, like I have somebody here today to speak on our recovery support services. So remember, we built into the agenda to involve community as well as talk about what's going on community. So that's that section. So James, you can apply back as an individual now that you're no longer representing an agency.
And that should probably be something we clarify in the bylaws, correct? In the
So
section?
because that's another true statement. I'm only talking about history here. Because I've been around a while. See, I'm getting gray. We have done that, but it is probably not clear and spelled out enough. But we have done that, and we have voted for those members, kind of like how you guys kept me around for a little bit. We'd want to keep James around a little bit. So our bylaws need to make sure that we don't have what's called brain drain. So James has been around a while. He's fantastic. Marcella, myself, and the rest of you. So there's got to be ways that this commission doesn't ever go through brain drain or get itself stuck to the point where there's not enough people around to keep the momentum going, as well as telling the history and the understanding of how we make our decisions. So James, if I was you and we're going through this bylaw process, I would continue to bring up that point, because I think it's important that you come back as an individual, because this commission needs support, and it needs brains, and it needs to continue to thrive. Further discussion? What's next?
Okay. So Donda, if you go to the next slide. Now, this is all I saw listed under purpose. It's just that first sentence there, the purposes of the council while fostering relationships across stakeholders, state and federal entities shall be regions or topics of need as determined, which, isn't very, thrilling. So I just, and especially.
Well, it actually doesn't really say anything.
Yeah. So I just pasted down below some of the things that are in federal law, right? Which again, we can restate or add to however we want, but also I think this is an important section to really think through, because again, of all that's going on in Colorado and other councils, and really defining the purpose of BPAC. So don't know if we'll, come to all the answers today, but I think this is definitely a section to really put some thought into.
Again, I'm really going to encourage that we get as hybrid as we can so we can start tackling these. So, but I'm going to go back to my colleague that I'm sitting aside of task force members today and say, the purpose statement really has to be related to the data that we don't have. So data drives purpose. And you can't, someone just put that in there?
Yeah, Laura, just put this goes back to your earlier thing.
Laura, we're on the same page.
Yeah,
Love you, girl.
Data driven.
So you can't really write a purpose statement without facts. So data is really key. So again, I'm glad we made the motion for the data, but I'm going to move us on from purpose because until we have adequate information, you can't really design a purpose statement without the necessary information that drives it. So is there another slide you want to go to, or do you want to talk about the bottom part?
We can, but I think a place to start is just simply looking at the three things that are required in federal law for the BPAC.
All right, so
Right.
on the bottom part of this slide, there are three bullets, bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3, and these are in statute that are required. So let's take a look at those. So now can we modify these? Are you saying we just need to cut and paste these in? What do you want us to do with these three?
I think you can modify them, but I think this council has to be clear that you are fulfilling these roles in federal law, right? And so there's currently nothing clear to me in bylaw that mentions these three things. So at the very least, we need to mention the role of this council in reviewing, right? Reviewing plans for block grant, et cetera.
I had the exact same thought as Laura about, are we replacing mental health with behavioral health based upon Colorado deciding to reintegrate those two? Because that's what she was saying.
Good point.
Well, that's our choice to do locally.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what she is asking. We need to adjust those.
Yeah, because this is Margie Grimsley. I just want to say, I think this is a phenomenally good idea to include this. So number one, it's very clear for those involved and then to recruit new people, but it's also clear to distinguish what is specific to this council versus the new Behavioral Health Administration group. So this really does give the framework that I think is so important to have.
Great. So perhaps it can be, this is the base minimum, right, of the purpose. And then to Bob's point, that purpose can be further refined as conversations evolves, as you get more data and can be informed. Does that sound right?
It sounds right to me. Does that sound right to the rest of my colleagues?
Yeah, the only thing I quickly see is nothing specific on substance use.
We'll change to behavioral
Yes,
health.
yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I can look at that and see is.
I'm wondering why I'm not hearing from my recovery folks.
This is Margie, just real quickly, is that this is where that combining that Colorado did for the mental health, because it's the block grant for both mental health and for substance use. But those distinctions how to clearly define that, because it does, when reporting, if I'm right, from the state people, when the reporting goes back, it goes back as the mental health block grant. There are distinctions in the process of when the information leaves Colorado and goes to the federal government. Because there are distinctions between the two block grants. Am I?
Yeah, so the reporting is different, but we operate differently in Colorado.
Yeah.
But before we run out of time, I'm just going to throw some bait out to my colleagues. Shouldn't number 4 be recovery supports?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I was under the.
Where are you guys? Come on.
I was under the perception, because I was just talking to Travis, because he asked that question. And I was like, well, the BPAC is really specific to SUD, mental health prevention, treatment, and recovery. So I just assumed, but you're right, the language should be in there. So yes, I would like to say that recovery support service across the continuum with mental health and substance use should definitely be a number 4.
So.
So remember,
yeah.
these are what we have to do.
Yep.
But number 4 is what we do in Colorado.
Yep.
So you can add the 4th,
Yep.
and so we can add that, but it needs to be a motion today, and you guys need to make it official that you want to do that. So,
Well, this is Margie, just as Yumiko took this out of or whatever you took it out of, is there a piece of language that comes out of the substance use block grant that could be inserted here so that
That's a question. Let me
recovery
talk
is now
with
an office of SAMHSA, so there is language now.
Yeah, let me get with Ryan Templeton. He's our guru on all of this. And so let me make sure I've actually pulled the most up-to-date language and is inclusive. And then I do think taking another look at it and making sure it reflects Colorado and what BPAC has chosen as potentially a broader charge. So.
All right, so
yeah.
if Yumiko is taking this back, there needs to be a motion and put in the minutes. So that way she can represent that the commission has asked for this. So somebody needs to make a motion that we want to explore if there's updated language for recovery supports for item number 4, which is yet to be there. But we would like to explore if there's new language to add recovery supports and make a 4th underneath our purpose statement. Motion, please.
I'll make that motion, please.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
If there's any way that we can help, because I know just in state statute, there's definitions of recovery support services, RCOs, and also under SAMHSA. So if I can help with any of that, please. Just
Yeah, it would have to be federal because it's federally related money. So could the screen come down so we can go to vote? If there's no more further discussion, we need to go to vote so I can count. So I can see everyone's faces. There you all are. All right, put your hands up. We're ready to vote. Thank you, Angie. Put your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Motion passes. Okay, next.
Do you want to move to 11:30?
Yes.
Here?
We can go.
It's up to you.
Wrap up. All right, everyone. This is the exciting time of the agenda where we find out what's going on in our respective lives when it comes to prevention, treatment, and recovery. I'm going to start us off with prevention. Is there any prevention announcements out there in the community? What's going on in prevention? Speak up. It's your turn.
I should say, I know this group loves Bonnie. She was not able to be here today, and she did write a nice statement, which I'll try to pull up in a second, saying that she's over at CDPHE now, but she's not gone anywhere and will attend and continue to kind of help champion prevention with this group.
Great. definitely have to beef up prevention with BPAC. So let's move on. If there isn't any, I don't see any hands. What's going on in the treatment community?
I will share. This is Angie. We Arts recently received a SAMHSA grant to connect individuals presenting to University Hospital ED with opioid use disorder to kind of do a hot handoff care coordination between the social work team at the ED with our OTP clinics. And so it's very exciting. It was just awarded as of September 30th. So we're still in the planning phase of getting it off the ground. And we're also going to be working with Stride also as a partner on the grant. So trying to make a difference. Hopefully we can get people actually into treatment.
Congratulations, that's really important work. Any other announcements from the treatment community?
Oh, Angie, what hospital was this? Sorry. Angie, what hospital did you say you're working with?
Stride and University Hospital, UCH.
Stephanie, did you want to go next?
Yeah, we have, I guess it's not super new anymore, but Wellpower has rolled out our Therapy Direct program, which is like on-demand online counseling sessions, up to 3 free sessions for anyone. And so we're looking for, just trying to make sure that everyone knows about it. It can be anyone in the Denver, right now, I think the metro area. But want to make sure people know about it and are also looking for partner organizations that might be interested in having like a Therapy Direct kiosk actually on site where people can just hop on and access services on demand.
Congratulations, that's really amazing. Who else from the treatment community? All right, I have an announcement. Mile High Behavioral Healthcare received a SAMHSA grant. It's called Be the Vibe. It is a harm reduction grant, so we will be working in the harm reduction realm when it comes to opioids. And so Angie, let us know how us harm reduction folks can come in and continue to support. So that is also a testing grant. We're doing hepatitis C and HIV and lots of different kind of programming to reduce the harm of opioids. So we're very excited for that opportunity, and that's for the metro region, including our new Summit County location that we opened up as well. So if you're interested in learning more about our harm reduction program and how we can support all of you, please reach out to me and I can connect you to the grant program coordinator. Is there anything else in the treatment community as for updates? Because I know the recovery community is chomping at the bit. I could see you all on TV screen. All right, my co-occurring recovery community, go for it.
I'll go ahead and jump in just real quickly. So coming up, I put in the events. We have an amazing, we're going to be doing a cultural drumming circle. We've actually flown in some incredible people from Alaska through one of our coaches who's and that's this weekend. I put that information in there. More about our
from Alaska.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, I need more information.
Yeah, she's an Indigenous woman, and she's actually been inducted into the tribe up in Alaska. She went up there and did an open ocean canoe to be introduced into their tribe, and she's been able to secure 2 of them to fly down here, also in connection with Doug Goodfeather and White Bison, to support this drumming circle, a cultural drumming circle for everybody to learn about it, but more importantly to heal the recovery community. So this is our first one, but I could see this being kind of an ongoing thing. But for this first one, we do have 2 individuals from an Indigenous tribe in Alaska coming down to help.
And James, I've been following you guys on Instagram, so I noticed you were, I think, Faces and Voices of Recovery, and you guys just got back?
Yeah, and that was kind of the other big update.
Right.
We just got back,
So
21st annual.
So my question is, since I've been following some of the great work you guys have been doing, is the drum circle going to be live on Instagram where I can watch it from the comfy of my sofa?
I don't think so, not on this one, because we wanted to honor the privacy of the community that's coming in person. It's
Okay.
something I'm going to talk to Jackie about, because I've had a couple people ask that couldn't show up. I think what it does is show us a need that maybe the next one we do might be virtual. So if that does change, I will definitely make sure Bob, you and everybody here knows about it immediately. But being that it's literally in a couple of days, I don't think this one's going to be available virtually.
Well, I can let you all know when you're all, this is for all of the recovery community. I think it's absolutely great seeing so much on Instagram that you're doing through barbecues, events, movie nights, opening up in Aurora. You know, I've been following along and keeping track of it. And even if we don't see the faces, James, if you could do the audio, that would be awesome. This just sounds amazing to hear this fantastic person from an indigenous tribe coming from Alaska. I'm like, wow. I want to hear it.
Okay, well, you bring up a good point. I'm going to work on that vigorously today and tomorrow and see what I can pull together, not just for you, Bob, but you bring up a good point.
I mean, I was giving a lot of honeydew lists out today. I apologize to everybody. I know Angie's looking at me like, please, Bob, don't give me one. All right, what else is going on in the recovery community?
And then I want to.
Oh, James has got another one.
Yeah, just we are kind of reinvigorating. We have a grant. It's a statewide advocacy grant called One State, One Voice. So we're reinvigorating our recovery ambassador trainings. They have one coming up in person in Sterling, but we're going to be doing them throughout the state. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. We're looking for community stakeholders and people in recovery from all avenues of recovery. To become recovery ambassadors, to bring one state, one voice with a legislative session coming forth. You know, it's just important. So I'll make sure that I keep you all updated, but I wanted to bring that up. And also just to bring up that we do have our very first family support specialist. Her name is Tracy. She lost her son, Evan, to an overdose about 3.5 years ago. So she's serving the family members in all avenues of recovery. So that's another service that we've been doing for a little while, but I just wanted to kind of reinvent it or reintroduce it to you all. So if you have family members, you know, that are suffering with loved ones that are either going through or in recovery, we do have that family support specialist at AFR, and you can feel free to reach out to me or our main number or email to get more information or to connect those family members so that they too can start to work on their own recovery. So
congratulations, AFR and James. Travis, I know you've been chomping at the bit. What's up?
Last month went amazing. I remember, you know, last time I was here, I introduced that we were going to do our first annual rally for recovery. So I just want to give you a little update that the experience that the community had here was amazing. We had, in the small community we had about 200 to 250 people throughout the day. The community connections was amazing. The Sterling PD, the fire department, just the volunteers and the turnout that we had was just awesome. The chief of police actually got into the dunk tank in his uniform and let the kids dunk him, you know, repeatedly. It was awesome. And then about the 4 or 5 police and deputies and other commanders and just that were here. Then they kind of manned that dunk tank for the rest of the afternoon and just let the kids have a great time. And we had participants get in there and just other people in the community. And it was an amazing connection opportunity for this community, for healing, for resources, and just to get the word out there of who AFR is, what we do, and what we can give to the community. So I wanted to give you that update. And then, like James said, we are doing a recovery ambassador training here in Sterling. It's going to be on October 25th from 1 to 4 at our location. So I know it may be a long ways for people, and I know they're going to be coming all around the state, but if you're interested, I did put the flyer in there. Feel free to reach out to me. And I can get you connected with Sean Gartrell, who's our training and outreach manager, and get you more information on that. And then we are also going to be doing our big Halloween event. The next 3 months, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas here in Sterling is big recovery social events for us. So we're going to be putting a haunted house in our center with games, food, fun, music, all of the stuff. And that's going to be on October 29th, I believe, from 5 to 9 p.m. So again, if you guys want to come and have a fun Halloween and dress up, there is going to be a costume contest. Last year I was Beetlejuice. I still haven't quite decided what I want to do this year, but come on down. It's we have a lot of fun here. So if anybody wants to come and experience that, please do.
Somehow, Travis, I have a feeling this year's costume is going to be as creative as last year's. You just kind of got that vibe of the creativity. So for everybody that's on the Zoom call today, if you have something going on in the community and you have a flyer, please send it over to Donda and she'll get that out to all of us so we can get it out to the rest of the communities that we serve. So is there anything else from the recovery community today?
Yeah, I've got something I want to share here. I'm Megan Stott with Colorado Mental Wellness Network. This is my first meeting with all of you. I'm very happy to be here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our statewide association that we're in the process of developing, which is going to be for the peer support workforce. Colorado Mental Wellness Network is developing this association to sort of serve as a hub for peer support professionals and their employers, but also to legitimize the workforce in the state's eyes. We're going to have a code of ethics. We're going to have a membership structure that people can, or a membership that people can join. So I just wanted to speak to that a little bit and let everybody know what we're doing to try to legitimize the peer workforce.
Is that for both those with substance use disorders, peers, and mental health, or just mental health?
Anybody with lived experience, substance use, or mental health. Mm-hmm.
And what's the name of the association?
Oh, yeah, that would have been good for me to include, huh?
No, I think you said it, but I just.
No, I didn't say it in its entirety. It's going to be the Colorado Association of Peer Support Professionals.
Megan, will this be in collaboration with COPA, or are you doing this separately from the COPA organization? Colorado Providers Network.
Yeah, this is separate from COPA right now. I think Hope could probably speak more to that than I could. I think this is going to be just our own thing right now. Okay. But yeah, I'm not sure I can give you all that info. I don't know for sure.
That's okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to introduce Dresden. She is our manager of recovery support services here at Mile High Behavioral Healthcare. Our program is called Transcend. We are a step down model from treatment. So they actually graduate and then move into the Transcend program. So it's in between, let's say, like AFR, and it's in between being in treatment, our Transcend model. So it's a gentle step down. It's still within the facility. It's still within the people that you know and the comfort and the trauma level. So I'll turn it over to Dresden because we have a lot going on in the Transcend department.
We do. So it is my first meeting with y'all, and I'm so excited to be here. Y'all are very welcoming. A couple things about myself. I am a person with sustained long-term recovery. I am a Colorado family and peer specialist, and I have become the recovery support manager here at Mile High. I started at Mile High 7 years ago. And like Dr. Medlock said earlier, we have to find a behavioral health agency where we feel safe, right? So out of all the ones I attended, Mile High is where I found my home. Took me 4 long years to kind of find my stride in my recovery journey. And then Bob brought me in to kind of help our other clients that are here on their journey. One of the amazing things about working here at Mile High is Bob is always listening. He has eyes and ears everywhere. Okay. So he definitely brought me in and listened to my ideas when it came to pieces and parts that were not available when I came through Mile High. And he has worked really hard to build those and allow me the opportunity to put input in those programs. One of those is Transcend. So that is an aftercare program where we bring in your family, we bring in your community, we bring in your safe, sober people that you built around you, and we help you find social interactions, treatment-related interactions, things after the main treatment part that you still need to help. So one of mine was my kids didn't get help when I was getting help here, right? We now have community dinners. We now have opportunities for families to come in and see where mom or dad is, right? Where they go each day of the week. We have those the last Wednesday of every month, right? It's open to the community. It's open to our collaterals. It's open to our families, whoever that looks like to you. We have, not to rain on your event, Travis, but Mile High goes hard for Halloween. So our office will be completely turned into a haunted house. It's our 4th annual Freaky Friday. It's October 21st. We have about 350 people that come to this event. We will have a chili cook-off, right, with prizes, and that's fully decorated chili pots, decorated employees making the chili. Okay, we have a DJ, we have a car show. We are hoping for about 50 cars. We have off-roading vehicles, old school classic cars come in, decorating their trunks. We are going to have trunk or treat, trick or treating. You'll get to walk through all of our halls here. We have a friendly competition. We call it Deck the Halls between all of our teams. It does get semi-unfriendly. It's very secretive, okay? Nobody will know my hallway until Bob comes through, all right? It's going to be an amazing event. It's the 21st from 6 to 9, and that's open to all of the community. It's open to our neighbors. It's open to our clients, their families, all the people.
So come on down, Travis. We'd like to bring a pot of chili and let's see what you're going to be.
Yeah.
All right, so you're all welcome to attend. I will send over a flyer. And just know that we are a step down model. So if anyone's experiencing needing a little bit more support, but not wanting to go back into treatment, we are certainly the option in the recovery community, since we do offer a little bit more intense recovery supports with the way we've set up our model, and that is for co-occurring. And yes, Margie, it's 100% for adolescents and families. Because we now work with the extended families to understand what the recovery process is. And we need to build in those safeties for the children that used to be scared of mom and dad, and now they have to reattach to a new clean and sober mom and dad. So that's very important work that we're doing here. So enough about us, and join us at Freaky Friday. And we do go all out. It is pretty crazy. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be better than Travis, but
friendly competition.
Like friendly. So on that note, and on our departing fall.
Well, the only way we're going to know is if we come to each other's event.
Oh, I'll come down there. It's
I'll
29th. If you come to ours, I'll come to yours.
She's got a Harley. She's on it. All right. If there isn't anything else, y'all look great and healthy. Have a great. We got one more. Go ahead, please.
Hey, I just want to do, this is nothing like what you're just talking about, but I want you to mark your calendars for December 18th. It's a Sunday. The lovely Lisa Ling, her show, This is Life with Lisa Ling. She spotlighted Life Ring Secular Recovery Meeting in January.
Oh my
and
God.
we finally got the air date. The title of the show is actually TIL, which I learned stands for Today I Learned. TIL, we have a drinking problem. That's the title of the show. And Lisa gathered a lot of data about alcoholism, the rise of it. And she went to California and she came to Denver. And that's going to air on Sunday, December 18th.
Lorraine, that's absolutely amazing. Make sure you get that out closer to time again, because
Yeah, I'll be talking about it the next 2 months.
All right. Well, Keep talking about it. All right, who else do I got? Nat, did you want to go?
We have,
Okay, Marge?
I just wanted to say, I wonder if maybe at our next meeting, we could have time for our new state people to share a little bit about what they do and how they see their role on this, because I know sometimes when you go to a meeting for the first time, you're not really sure where you fit and what your tasks are, because I mean, especially we haven't had someone from Department of Education for a long time. I would love to hear from them and see how we can help them be such a valuable part of our group.
Thank you for the agenda item, and I'll have it added. Do you guys have any other agenda items?
Debbie has her.
Debbie?
So you just took what I was going to share. So I'm with the Division of Criminal Justice within the Department of Public Safety. So I've been listening and trying to figure out kind of where I fit in and what my role is in this. So I was going to share a few things that we're doing, or I can hold off till next month, whatever the group prefers.
I think because we're close to the end of time and people are going to want to communicate with you, we're going to have all of the state communicate with us at our next meeting, and we'll actually get you all on the agenda so you have adequate time for question and answers.
That sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome, Debbie. Anything else for the agenda or announcements? All right, I got you out 10 minutes early. Happy Fall Fest. Happy Halloween. Be safe. Travis, be on the lookout.
Travis, be on the lookout. I had to write that down. I'd gone to miniaturely cook off and